Welcome, Risa. Thank you for joining us again, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Dawn, and thank you everyone for tuning in to part 3 of our marketing webinar series just for dermatologists with the ASDS. So today I'm going to be speaking about tactical marketing information you need to recover, because hopefully we can see light at the end of this tunnel and we can start preparing for that to come soon. If you haven't been in either of the 2 previous webinars, here's just a quick slide with a little bit about me. My firm, Goldman Marketing Group, works exclusively in the healthcare space and almost exclusively in dermatology and cosmetic surgery. So almost 20 years of experience in your field now. So I have started off each one with this, and I'm going to say it again, but one day we will all look back and we will say, we lived through the coronavirus outbreak of 2020. And while all day we hear about the losses, my whole series, I have tried to keep really positive and focus on the opportunities that are out there. So, we are all taking a loss, and we could talk all day long about all the difficulties and the stresses and, who didn't get their PPP loans approved like me yet, and all these other things. But I think it's important to focus on the opportunities that are available to us, the innovation that is possible, and if we do it and we do it well, I strongly believe that they will become permanent aspects of your business and maybe even open up new revenue streams that you didn't have before. So we're going to speak about that today. This is also a great quote that I have been thinking about when things get crazy, and the word crisis in Chinese is really of 2 characters. One is danger and one is opportunity. And I think, that quote by John F. Kennedy helps put things in perspective. So the 3-part series, just to remind you, was, the first one was information you need to do right now. The next one of how to sustain through the COVID-19 kind of stay home mandate. And today is how to recover. If you missed the previous 2, the recordings are available from the ASDS, or, I'd be happy to email them to you if that's easier as well. So for today, we are going to be going over kind of at a glance what our new normal is going to be, our potential soft versus full reopening, what kind of website and online presence updates you're going to need to make, what your patient communication plan might look like, how you should go about restarting your advertising and automated campaigns, and then which of the innovations you've made should you continue with, like virtual consults, virtual events, and e-commerce skincare. So let's get right to it. At a glance, there's going to be a lot of decisions to make right now. What is our timeline? Of course, we're waiting to hear, most of us from the governors at least, what our state mandates are. But no matter when they are, you guys can already start thinking about your timeline. For example, in California, they just said today that it's going to be, for sure, we're going to stay home until June 1st. So as a physician, if you are a physician in California, does that mean you want to open up on June 1st? Or are you going to reassess and kind of do a soft launch over the first week? Do you want to be extra safe and do July 1st, whatever it might be? Those are the things to consider. And then, which digital offerings that you're doing right now would you maybe want to keep and continue? I know all of you, I would imagine, would be keeping a lot of the things that you've put in place, which we'll speak about more. And then what's your patient communication plan? So crisis can lead to opportunity. Some of this opportunity, it might be a modification or improvement in your staff. You've most likely had to furlough or reduced hours for a lot of people. So, you can just go back to the exact same staff that you had, and if you want to, that's perfectly fine. But this is also potentially an opportunity to find new talent. There's a lot of amazing people right now looking for work, and, you kind of have the opportunity to decide who to bring back and in what capacity. The next is kind of a rollout of new SOPs, new software. SOP stands for your standard operating procedures. So this is the time, as we spoke about last time, that you should be focusing on your operations, your workflows, your systems, and your softwares. So when you go live again, it's the perfect opportunity to roll them out and make them the new norm. And of course, overall, I think you should think of this as your 2.0 business model, because you're getting this time to innovate and to improve, restructure, re-solidify your foundation, whatever it is. So when you go live again and are able to see patients in the same way we used to, I would start thinking about it really like your 2.0 business plan. So what's our new normal going to look like? Well, first of all, I think the competitive landscape is going to change. I think that we will see a reduction of the total competitors you have. A lot of businesses, practices are not going to be able to survive this, especially the smaller ones. I think more and more physicians, might be looking to join private equity or bigger groups where they won't have to manage and handle all of this on their shoulders in the future. As one example, I think that the best will survive, the people that have been able to kind of grab this by the reins and run with it. I think things that we've taken for granted will be different. I think we all know that. Even now, I'm watching TV and movies and seeing people in tight social situations touching everything, and I almost wonder, will that ever be, all these things that we took for granted, will those ever be possible again, or will those all be from the olden days in the movies? But most of all, I think, if you're listening to this webinar, I assume you are surviving and hopefully, handling the opportunities and the crisis that's amongst us. So hopefully you will be one of the few of the strong that will survive. So our adaptation, with a new economy, our new normal also needs a new marketing strategy and approach. We can't go back using the old marketing because it's not going to be the same old economy. They're not the same people that they used to be. People have changed. This is a life-changing experience for most all of us. So I think that this is absolutely the time to make sure that your new marketing strategy will be consistent with the new economy and the new culture. It's also a great reset opportunity with your vendors, your advertising partners, your patient experience, and your operations. I think with all of them, there's opportunities to relook and change, modify plans, whatever it might be. And I also think that this is kind of a beautiful time to consider rebranding and almost a rebirth and relaunch of yourself. Not just your logo and your branding, but also your voice, your key messaging, and just kind of your overall presence of how you want to be perceived in the marketplace. If you were ever thinking about that, or if you thought that might be a good time to kind of improve it or nail it down more, I think this would be a beautiful time because we are already going to have a relaunch of Back into the World. So it makes sense to do it simultaneously. And evolution is key. We always want to keep evolving and keep improving. Things that worked a couple months ago are not going to work anymore, but because of COVID. But even regardless of COVID, we need to constantly be looking at everything we're doing and trying to consistently try and improve. So again, the things we've taken for granted, I think, will be different. I think social distancing, of course, will become, less strict, but I think there will still be some sense of it, and we will have to consider what that will mean. For example, in your waiting room, I'm sure a lot of you have chairs stacked real close together. What should that look like? Should you add more space between them? Should you reduce the amount of chairs? Should you stagger your appointments more so there's less people congregating in that space at any given time? I think environmental and sustainability concerns are going to be of higher, on people's minds more than they used to be. At least that's my hope, and I hope that I'm right. But I think that this will be something that we'll see brands speaking to. For example, not tested on animals, or it's organic, or it's clean for the earth kind of products. I think we will see that to come out more in the messaging for our products that may already have them. I think, and I hope there's going to be some more local pride in our communities. So I hope that for each of you, this will, be an opportunity for you locally to kind of get in on that of your city, your neighborhood, whatever your, local group is, and to kind of piggyback right onto that. I think pricing and value, none of us know exactly what it's going to mean. The government's infusing a lot of this money into our economy by just printing money, is what's going to happen with inflation? What's going to happen with perceived value? Because everyone's getting a little bit more money, our price is going to go up. Is coffee going to be $7 instead of $5 at Starbucks? Should your prices change? These are answers that we don't all have yet, but I think it's important for you to consider what that should be. Or on the flip side, instead of increasing, should prices come down? Is that going to be something that people are going to be doing to help people adapt from a time of struggle financially? And that, with that in mind, discounts. Are discounts going to become something we're going to see more often? I know a lot of you have already been offering some sort of discounts, for example, maybe on skincare during this crisis. You may have not offered discounts previously. You may have, maybe your discounts now are bigger. So, when we go back to our new normal, are you going to continue to offer discounts? Were they really just a global pandemic discount time? Whatever that might be, I think these are important things to think about. And of course, with all of this, we want to make sure we stay relevant, which is why you cannot just go back like clockwork to exactly how things were working before. You have to be able to adapt and evolve to the new normal. Some operational improvements. We definitely don't want to put all of our eggs in one basket. So diversification in your services. I'm sure you have already seen that if you have that at all, it's probably already benefited you a little bit. For example, those of you that are selling skincare have the opportunity to still have some revenue right now. Maybe for some of you that see medical patients have some opportunity for emergency essential visits versus those that are only cosmetic. So I think we will more think about diversifying our services. Also, with the same concept of diversifying our lead generation. So where are our patients coming from? Generally, I always say that it should be almost split evenly in thirds between word of mouth, so your patients, physician referrals, your colleagues, and internet marketing referrals. And ideally, if you have a good even spread between those three, sometimes they're all going to fluctuate, but that'll help keep you a little bit more balanced for the long run. And I think your marketing campaigns ideally can be more structured, more thoughtful, and pulled through the whole campaign a little bit more. I every single day see people doing a lot of campaigns, but they're all one-offs. For example, you do an email blast, single one-off campaign. You need to be pulling that through social media, your website, your webinars, inside the office, your waiting room, and everything you do should really be more structured and comprehensive with very good ROI tracking in place so that you can actually see what's working and what's not for individual campaigns and promotions. So what is this new opening going to look like? I don't think we're going to go back like this from not seeing patients at all to just exactly how we used to. I think that will be some sort of soft reopening, eventually some sort of hopefully full reopening. So a soft reopening, I think for that, we will probably have reduced staff, the amount of people in your office, a stretched schedule, so more space between appointments to stop, too many people overlapping and, being too close to one another. Potentially no waiting room at all. Perhaps you'll still have patients wait in their cars and you'll call them when they're ready. Perhaps you'll bring people right back to an exam room right away if you have the space in your office. But I think the waiting room will definitely take a big change of appearance. I think that a lot of you will probably be interested or, feel responsible to actually test patients upon entering the office and upon scheduling. So upon scheduling, probably asking a few questions, and upon entering, are you going to take temperature of patients? Are you going to ask them some questions? What that might look like is something definitely to consider right now. And then how about protection for your staff? They're going to be all wearing masks and all wearing gloves, most likely, at least for the short term. So, we can wear medical ones. If we're going to have patients all wear masks as well, maybe it's a good time to start thinking about some branded masks. I'm doing a ton of those for clients right now, with nice cotton masks that maybe have your logo or some branding on it, especially if you were going to ask each of them as they're coming in to put on a mask. And it might be a better use as opposed to using the medical grade masks. So what does the full opening look like? Whatever that might be, and I hope it does go back to completely full, but this would be, your full staff, your fully booked schedule with, overlapping patients and double booking, triple booking yourself. Hopefully a big grand reopening event when we're allowed to have bigger group gatherings. And then whatever it is, this will hopefully become our new normal. So I hope this is a little bit helpful to kind of think about staggering your way to a more full opening and some of the considerations that you should make. So how about your website and your online presence? There's a lot of platforms out there to consider. These are some of the big ones that will definitely need to be updated when you go back live and open up your doors. For example, on your website, we'll of course want to remove those COVID banners. You'll want to update your call to action buttons. Sometimes they might be saying, you know, virtual appointments, click here. And then what other updates did you change on your website that need to be reverted? A lot of us were working so quickly in the beginning to, you know, change verbiage here or change the verbiage on the membership page or the contact page and adding videos about virtual consults, whatever it might be. If you haven't kept a list of those, this would be a good time to kind of go back through, ask your web teams, your marketing teams, maybe even looking at your history of changes on WordPress or your website backend to make sure that you're clear everything that you did so that you can either revert it or remove it or update it, whatever it might be. And then I imagine some of you have also programmed some new functionalities to your website that you didn't have before. For example, we're doing pop-ups for some of our clients and stagnant banners. So even though we might not need those for a COVID update anymore, now that they've been programmed, designed, and implemented, can we use them for something else? For example, to keep people updated on a new promotion or a new research study that's enrolling, or you know, something, a new product or service that you're offering. So think about anything your team has done that may be able to be kind of repurposed in the future. And all of this is basically a little checklist for success, hopefully, so it's a little less stressful when we have to turn back on quickly. Social media. So I think we will want to update our social media strategy. For example, you're going to want to update your bio, you're going to check the call to action buttons on your platform, and eventually go from focusing all on COVID related stay home messaging to, you know, back to hopefully a little bit more, maybe 20% promotional messaging. Your local listings and online reputation, almost all of these websites have rolled out kind of COVID banners and updates. For example, here, this is on Google or on Yelp, on Real Self, they've added the virtual consultation buttons and as well as COVID banners. So you'll need to log into each one of these websites and update them, remove the banners, whatever it might be. I do know that Real Self just released a report this morning showing a much higher success and closing rate for people that are clicking virtual consultation or that are offering virtual consultations. And on the actual search algorithm in Real Self, when you're searching for a physician, there's a little button to press if you only want to see physicians that offer a virtual consult. I do think that all of you should click that because it is, if people are narrowing their search, you definitely still want to appear. And I think it will be great to continue, especially for out of town patients, or maybe even just for those patients that work and it's hard to get out of their office in the middle of the day to come kind of try and see you on a lunch break. Any questions, also feel free to ask as I'm going. Dawn will relay them to me. I'm happy to speak in real time if you guys have any questions. So what should a patient communication plan look like? Well, for one, I think that we should think about kind of a 3-part email campaign. It's not going to be just one email to go out to tell them what's changed. There's going to be a lot of different messaging that has to go out. For example, the timeline. What are the safety protocols that you're going to implement in your office to keep people safe? Because even when we turn back on, people are still going to be scared and concerned and preferring to not be in big crowds or around people. And mostly, I just think it's important to make it clear what to expect. If you can, even to maybe do a little video to kind of show them some of the things that you're doing, what it will be like when they get to the office, especially if there's going to be some operational changes, like when you arrive, you will call us and, you know, from your car, and we will put you down as checked in. And as soon as we're ready, we'll call you, you'll come up. Here's a little video walking you through. You'll walk right through to the exam room. All of our staff is wearing gloves and masks. You will be handed a glove to wear or mask to wear. We will ask you some preliminary questions to ensure it's safe, you know, whatever it might be, but just taking them through that journey, I think will be really helpful and make them feel a little bit more confident. A text messaging campaign is also important. Emails are difficult these days. A lot of them are going straight to spam filters or straight to the promotions tab. So texting is a lot of times a better way to make sure you're getting the word out to your patients. Of course, you want to be updating on Instagram, your feed and your stories, Facebook, your feed and your stories, LinkedIn, which is a great more for your potential referring physicians. Also, do any of you have any door or window signage that you've changed? A lot of people have been popping up kind of different signs about now offering virtual consults or, curbside pickup for skincare, whatever it might be. You definitely want to make a list of all of those and make sure that you're reverting them back as needed. And overall, with all of these, the more of a comprehensive kind of patient communication plan you put in place, the more it will make your patients feel informed and secure so that they're confident coming back to you, hopefully as quickly as possible for their treatments. Here's a couple other examples of kind of some social media posts, some virtual consultations and skincare orders, kind of communications that can be going out. This one having a video to kind of explain it. So how about patient reactivation and recall? Obviously, there was a lot of treatments that I'm sure were on your books that you guys had to postpone. So of course, that's the very first line of attack, is to go over all those ones that were postponed and reschedule them. It's also important to kind of start re-engaging with your open leads that you had. For example, how many open leads did you have for maybe 3 weeks before you shut down to COVID? 6 weeks, 1 week, whatever you decide it's going to be, you need to make a list of all those leads that maybe had come in or that you were in communication, kind of chatting with, and make sure to re-engage with them and try and pick up where you left off, as opposed to just waiting for new leads to come in. Absolutely, it's important to run some lists of people that are due for treatments. A lot of people are going to know they're due because our Botox and our treatments have completely worn off and we are counting down the days. But others might not, completely remember, and it might not be the first thing that they're thinking about when we kind of open up society again, especially for things that are not as visibly present, but for example, a skin check. So I hope, as I've said in previous webinars, that you have modified a little bit of kind of the recall campaign so you don't have any automated things going out to tell people right now that they're due, because it's just going to stress them out that they can't get in. So when we come back, we can hopefully update, and any of those patients that were supposed to get a recall will now come through and be, informed that they are due. And most all of this is easier said than done, because it requires a lot of outbound communication, outbound calling, outbound emails. And a lot of times I see staff at the office, the front desk staff, much preferring to kind of just handle the inbound communication. And they can respond to those all day long. But when you actually ask someone, here's a list, please just call all of these people, it's a lot scarier than to just handle the incoming leads. So I think, talking through, giving them some talking points, doing some run-throughs, pretend run-throughs with someone on the phone, a secret shopper, whatever it might be, I think will help people be a little bit more confident, because I think the outbound calling and the outbound communication is going to be key. And do you have anyone on? Yeah.
We have a question. How do you recommend the reschedule? Do you keep the patients you already have on the schedule in June and add on the patients we canceled, or would you give priority to the patients who were canceled?
That's a really good question. I imagine that the patients that you already have for June, that you're not fully booked, so hopefully you can do a little bit of both. I think patients that were scheduled for treatments should probably be prioritized, because they already had committed to it and they wanted it, and you don't want them to think or go elsewhere, especially if they had wanted to get it in March or April. Someone that had wanted to get in June would probably be less stressed and anxious if you push them back a couple of weeks, versus someone that wanted to get in the end of March, couldn't get in, and now they can't get in right away and you're making them wait for the other people. So I hope that makes sense the way I answered it, but I think I would prioritize the people that had to be postponed first, if possible. And I hope that we are all so slammed with all the people that not only were postponed, but for the people that wanted to get in, the people that have had time to learn about new things while we're gone. I hope it would be a great problem for all of us to have, to be, not enough room in our schedules to get them booked. Okay, so now how about restarting your advertising and your automated campaigns, which again, we spoke in the previous webinars about making sure that most of these are paused or modified completely right now. So they should be part of your checklist of things that need to be updated. These are some of the examples of some of the automated communications that you might have going on for your office that will need to be either turned back on or modified. If you don't have something on this list implemented for your office, I highly recommend doing so, reaching out with your marketing teams or someone to help you, because they are, appointment reminders and online scheduling and recalls and review invitations are all very easy to implement and very effective marketing tools. So appointment reminders, recalls like we talked about. How about points expiring? We should also go look into our brilliant distinctions and our expire lists and all those people that have been built up. Hopefully you'll have a good number, and I'm sure your allergy and Galderma reps would be happy to help. But running those lists for your outbound calling is a great thing to do. Hopefully restarting up your Yelp advertising. Make sure to remember that if you put your campaigns on pause instead of canceling them, Yelp is offering $300 when you unpause it to kind of help you restart. So that's a little incentive to get back with them. Your real self spotlights also, many of you may have paused, so we might want to restart those again, especially I think right at the beginning when we come back to normal, there's going to be a mad rush of people that are interested in getting all these things done. So I definitely think that that's the time to make sure that you are able to be found online for sure. Not to not make yourself there because you're busy with all the appointments you had to reschedule, because we want to make sure that you have a continual, influx of new leads to keep you busy through the remainder of the year in the future. ZocDoc is another one that you may have modified in some way. Of course, Google pay-per-click, a lot of people have paused right now or modified. And, the question is, do you just revert back and just turn it back on, or do you update it? I would look back through the messaging and all of these platforms and make sure that it's still going to feel relevant, especially because we talked about that it's not going to be kind of a full opening night and day. It's going to be somewhat of a soft opening. So, we might be wanting to put keywords into ads that we didn't have before, maybe about their safety, is our number one priority, and, we're extra precautions or whatever we're doing in our office. I think those are some of the things that people are going to be asking about and will help them feel more secure and safe. So we might want to start kind of dripping those throughout all of our marketing campaigns. Okay, how about continuing some of the innovations that we have done, like your virtual consultations, your virtual events like we're doing right now, and e-commerce skincare. So I definitely think that your online scheduling should stay if you didn't have it already. But over here, kind of for the reason, now you should have two options, video, virtual consultation, or in-person consultation to give people those options. I imagine that not all of you are doing online scheduling right now or have done it in the past. So just my 2 cents to kind of get set up with some online scheduling. I know it can be intimidating. You want to pick a platform that matches that syncs with your practice management software. But I also say if you're concerned or nervous, start with just consultations. That way you don't need to worry about rooms or treatment times or lengths or people signing themselves up for something that they're not eligible or a candidate for. So start with just consultations, see how that goes. Then once you've kind of mastered that, then add Botox and maybe go from there eventually down the line. But I do think that online scheduling is a new kind of necessity for every single office. I think creating a video, which we spoke about previously, about kind of what to expect, easy to follow instructions will be helpful. Okay, so how about your e-commerce and your online skincare sales? I wish I could ask you guys now to raise your hands if this is something new that you're doing, and I hope that I would see a lot of you raise them. But I think that patients are now, maybe they've been a little spoiled. I don't have to stop by your office anymore. Now I can just do curbside pickup, or now you'll just ship it right to me, or the manufacturer will ship right to me. So whatever that is, I think it's definitely worth keeping. Again, you can ship from the office, you can ship from the manufacturer, or you can use a third-party seller, which we spoke about last time. I mentioned Regimen MD is kind of the only professional grade third-party reseller right now that I'm familiar with. So, I'd be happy to help answer any more questions about this, but I definitely think that it's something you should continue to offer, and as a kind of a side revenue stream for your office. I think some people might be thinking in their heads, well, I want them to come into my office. If they come in to buy skincare, we're going to be able to sell them more, or we'll be able to help customize it or make sure they're getting better products. because I hear that objection a lot. And while I do agree, my argument back to you would be that if you don't offer people the ability to do it from the ease of their home, then instead of deciding to come into your office, that's not their only other option. Their other option is to go to the 10,000 stores online that sell all this professional grade skincare and just order it right from them. So to avoid yourself being cut out from the equation, I think you should allow people to do it both ways, both inside the office or, you know, over the phone or online. How about these webinar series that I spoke about last time? I hope some of you have done them and I hope they've been successful. I think that if they have, I think they're a great thing to consider keeping as part of your normal offerings. I'm sure almost everyone in here has probably had some sort of in-office event before, whether an open house or a lunch and learn. So I think you should think about your webinars as a virtual event. So instead of in the future when your Allergan rep comes in, like let's do a Botox event, you know, should it be an in-office event or a virtual event? There really are two options now. And what I am finding is that the in-office events, you are limited by the number of people you can physically fit in your space, the number of people that can park and get there, the number of people who can come at that exact day and time. And, you know, of course, by your staff. A lot of times there's overhead and it's confusion for the office to happen while you're also seeing patients. So there are some concerns and some limitations with in-office events. When you do a virtual event, not only is it easier for people sometimes to get into, especially during business hours, it's much less of a concern and kind of a difficulty for your staff and for your office environment. But the best part about these webinars is that more people are going to be able to see them. You're going to have a much farther reach because you are going to record them and share them afterwards. For example, from some of the webinar series that I'm running, we're seeing, you know, maybe 100, 120 people logging in live. But by the time we share them on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and email out the recordings, we are getting well over 1,000 people kind of to have eyes and to watch the presentation or be part of the event. And obviously that would be unheard of. You would never have anywhere close to that number in your office. So I'm actually a really big advocate for continuing to have virtual events, maybe as the primary events in the future. How about subscription and membership services? This is something that I'm sure some of you have already been offering and maybe others have thought about, but I think this is a great time to continue thinking about it and maybe set something up to be ready when we come back to our new normal. So what is a membership service? I mean, the high level is it's a monthly fee that they're paying for some sort of service. The service might be some unique content, maybe some checklists of, you know, ingredients to make sure that are not on skincare that they're buying, for example. Maybe some cheat sheets, you know, the order of products. What's the order that you should apply them in the morning? What products to use in the morning versus at night? Some sort of checklist people love. You know, a lot of times, of course, the first thought is a discount on products or services if I sign up to be a member. Maybe they have some special access to the practitioners, maybe through email. And maybe they even have access to some private online groups, like a private Facebook group is very easy to set up. I think removed or reduced fees like parking or shipping for skincare can be another perk of becoming a member. Maybe also priority scheduling, even same-day scheduling with some disclaimers to give you some bandwidth there. And also reduced wait time if possible. And maybe some special webinars and podcasts just for them. Basically, anything you can add of value is great for these membership services to make people feel inclusive, a part of a group, and they're really great for retention and for your branding. So this is a little example of just kind of showing you what it might mean or look like. This is a non-dermatology example, but you know, you can just see how much revenue it can bring in. You of course then need to pull those figures through any discounts you will be giving them or on parking or services or whatever it might be to see where your break even is. But usually they're very profitable, usually for the most part, because a lot of people sign up and then they don't fully maximize the services. So if you set up a membership service and it includes, you know, 10% off all services and, you know, a free facial each month, studies will show that, probably 50% of the people will not use the monthly facial. So, they're kind of paying for it, but not using it, for example. The same concept of why when we all buy gift cards and Groupons, I'm sure every single one of you probably have some gift card sitting in your wallet or at home that you have yet to use. So same concept, they're paying in advance for something they may or may not use. Also, I think affiliate marketing is kind of a next level activity that's worthwhile to consider right now. Maybe patients to resell skincare on their own. They might have their own teams or their own home or virtual parties. Dr. Zarian rolled out something like this just this week, I believe. If anyone's interested, my email's on the bottom of every slide. I'd be happy to forward it to you. But basically allowing your customers, your patients, to help also sell for you and be your advocates. Same concept if you have a membership plan with membership referrals. And it's actually a similar theory of working with an influencer, except for I think that it will become more attractive and more have a better ROI than working with influencers who are kind of already teetering and the rules and regulations around them, and it was already kind of becoming a little bit oversaturated, that market. So to kind of wrap things up, in the middle of every difficulty lies opportunity. There is a lot of opportunity right now for you, for your practice, for you personally, and I hope that each of you are really grabbing onto this. Again, the 3 webinars I would be happy to email any of you. The recordings are available, or even if you were just interested in the slides. So here's my information again, if you want to take a screenshot. And now I left a little bit of extra time, so I hope that some of you may have some questions for me.
Please go ahead and type your questions into the question pane, and we'll be sure to get those to Risa so she can answer those. Risa, just a quick question while we're waiting for people to submit some questions. What are you seeing right now from folks? Are you hearing that they'll be slowly opening the clients that you're working with? And if so, are you seeing that in the next 4 weeks, 6 weeks?
So I think right now I have clients all over the country, and of course it's a very different story in New York City than it is right now in Los Angeles, which is where I am. But I am seeing people that are hoping to maybe open by May 1st, but I think that it's going to be, June 1st is looking like maybe it's a little bit more realistic. But I have other offices, where a lot of patients are flying in, and especially flying in internationally, and I think they might take longer to come back just because of kind of international travel restrictions that I envision might still be around, depending on what those countries have in place. So I think people are all, the timelines are changing every day as the new, information comes out. But I think that most everyone is planning for a soft launch first, which is what I was speaking to, early on, and, far before they get to a full launch.
If you were going to keep your virtual visits, how do you recommend it be incorporated into our already busy schedules?
Good question. I think that virtual consults, are they something that would be good to do during lunch while your staff has to take a lunch break? Would they be something of interest to do for you on the weekend or in the evenings? If not, maybe some of your newer associates or someone in your office that has some gaps in your schedule, they can be filled in there. Or maybe they just take the normal place, and on your schedules, consultation with Risa in person, consultation with Risa virtual, and you'll just run back to your desk for those, and it will just kind of be part of the norm that some of them will be in person and some of them will be virtual. I think it will be interesting to see what people are interested in, but I think I really feel that people have all of a sudden been forced to become a lot more comfortable doing things virtually. Almost everyone, even up to my grandma, has now been on a Zoom session. So, they're more comfortable using technology in that sense. And so because of that, I think that there's definitely going to be an interest in doing virtual consults and really just incorporating them into your practice just like a regular consultation.
Any recommendation on Facebook versus Instagram marketing, which is more beneficial?
So both are important and they both hold a very different place. Instagram is going to have a younger demographic, maybe, 20 to 35-ish will kind of be your core group there, whereas Facebook will kind of be like 35 up. So I think in the messaging, you should think about that a little bit differently. For Instagram, maybe more of the prejuvenation, the Botox, lip fillers, clear and brilliant types of marketing, whereas on Facebook, a little bit more about, your aggressive CO2 fractional lasers or, fat transfer or, Sculptra, liquid facelifts, things like that. So I think it's important to do both. And if you're going to do one, it's easy to do both. I think also on Facebook, there, you can include things like links. So it's a little bit different, and there's polls and things that you can do, features that they don't have on Instagram. There's also, it's not just which platform, but it's also, is it the feed or the story? Because on Instagram, for example, there are a lot of people that really only look at stories, and then there are others that like to scroll the feed. So I think when you're thinking about both of them, it's kind of 4 things to post on: Instagram feed, Instagram stories, Facebook feed, and Facebook stories. In terms of where to spend your time and energy, I think Instagram is growing faster, and it's probably the future of your practice are those younger patients that are going to stay with you. So I definitely think it's worthwhile putting a lot of time and attention there, but I wouldn't forget about Facebook either, especially with the Facebook. I think people are going to hold on to it because of the private groups that are available on there, whether it be, like LA Mommies, which has hundreds of thousands of members, or beauty tips, or whatever private support groups are out there. I think people will still be logging into Facebook for those reasons.
Are your clients planning to extend office hours during the week or being open on weekends to accommodate patients?
Yes, that is something that we're talking about. Right now it's all theoretical because we are unsure of exactly what it's going to look like. But if we're going to have to stretch the schedules out, I think that makes sense that we're going to have to stretch out the office hours as well, and possibly even, segmenting your staff hours to accommodate it. So yes, I do think that that's going to be of interest, and people are going to be interested in it.
Do you have, as part of your company, Risa, membership programs and webinars in place that are already designed for dermatologists that would be easy to implement?
So everything that I do is very custom for each practice. We're not, a huge firm that programs something and then rolls out a template for 1,000 people. So I don't have, pre-ready software ready to go, but we do have protocols and foundations in place for all of those things. So it's not like you'd be starting from scratch. We would, be able to help, educate you, show you the kind of the couple different options, and then get it rolling very quickly. But my personal firm, everything we do is I like to be highly customized and branded for each unique office. It's a little bit of our philosophy. I also thought about one more thing. One of the earlier questions asked about, how will we fit in the virtual consultations? Maybe something that might be important to think about with a soft opening, if we're going to have to stretch out our visits so that patients don't overlap, maybe that's a good way to stretch it out. In-person consult, virtual consult, in-person, virtual, so it kind of gives that space. Might be something worth considering.
So we have an international member who's got a clinic in Madrid, and they're going to reopen in 2 weeks. And they want to know, do you think it's a good idea to lower their prices?
That is a good question. I mean, I think there's a couple things to consider with that. Well, first of all, it's very encouraging to hear that you're opening in 2 weeks. I really hope that the rest of us in the US are, that close to reopening quickly. So I think the first things I would do is I would do some little kind of competitive research, secret shopper calls, if you can, to some of the competitors in your area to see what they're doing. Are they going to be doing that? Calling them right now, most people are answering the phone. So I think you could probably call and ask, almost pretend to be a patient, have your staff do that. I think doing a survey of your patients might be of interest. Guys, there's tons of easy survey softwares to use, like SurveyMonkey. Sending something out as we're getting close to relaunching. We're curious. We want to hear from you. Are there anything you guys are expecting? In terms of schedules, in terms of price, in terms of whatever it might be. And we don't want to lead people down and ask them, like, do you want discounts or do you not? Because of course they will all say yes. But I think just opening up the question and allowing an open forum for them to give some feedback might show a lot of interesting information that's not going to come from someone like me, because it's going to be really different for each city. And, Madrid, I don't know exactly how hard Madrid was hit, but from what I have heard, I think you guys were hit pretty hard. So I think it might be different for you than it may be, for another country that didn't have, as big of a spike as I know Madrid, I think, did.
Do you know anything about the quick testing for COVID-19? Which company or test is being adopted by derm practices?
So I do not know any specific names, but I do know that a lot of people, are talking about them right now. And, I will be looking for resources as they become available for what tests are out there. Of course, the antibody test, I think, everyone's top interest. I guess I didn't speak about it in this webinar, but I do also see an opportunity for a potential for at-home visits for those of you that are comfortable. A lot of you might be saying, oh, no way would I ever do that. But I think others of you might want to really think about if you were able to get an antibody test and know for sure that you're immune and, not able to catch it or transmit it, would you be comfortable going into someone's house to do Botox, for example, or a skin exam? Because I think that there are some people out there offering that, and it is my gut tells me that they are going to get a flurry of interest, because people are, going to be concerned about going out. And if there's an opportunity to have someone come to your house to do your nails versus going to the nail salon, I think people might jump on that. So just another kind of something to think through.
How do we order branded cloth masks from you, Risa?
If you want to email me, I can connect you with the vendor that I have found. They have a couple different options available. I'm actually waiting for samples to be sent to me so I can feel them myself, but there's less expensive ones and nicer ones. But if you want to email me, I'd be happy to connect you with the vendor.
And then back to the Facebook versus Instagram, roughly what budget should be spent? Any ideas?
So yeah, I guess I didn't completely answer that question. I'm sorry. So I am not a fan of advertising on Facebook or Instagram. I don't think that there's a very good ROI. I think advertising with them can work, but for quick purchases like a skincare, discount, maybe a skincare product that you might want to buy, or I just bought something last night off of a Facebook ad to help clean out my washing machine, because they showed me a picture and I was grossed out, so I bought it. But it was like $8. So something like that, I think that Facebook ad worked well for me. But to sell a service, something that's a longer, more serious commitment, especially a surgery, I absolutely have not seen a lot of good success on Facebook. I have tried it 10 ways to Sunday, especially for things like pool sculpting with all the co-op dollars, and I really haven't seen a good ROI. So the way I would spend your money on Instagram and Facebook is on sponsored posts, because that will make sure that your content will get in front of everyone's eyes. You can sponsor them just to go to the people that follow you, to your followers and their friends. You can sponsor posts to go to more people, but I would focus your money on sponsored posts as opposed to ads. And then of how much to spend, I mean, I would say, it can be as, anywhere from $5 to $10 per post, depending on how often you're posting, but it doesn't need to be a lot. I might allocate a couple $100 a month to give to your team to use however they see fit, and start there.
Have you worked with Modernizing Medicine or Reliant software systems, Risa?
I have. I do. I have a lot of clients more on Modernizing Medicine than Reliant. So I have. Is there a specific question about that?
They just are wanting to know, have you worked with them, and are you familiar with them, and maybe do you have any recommendations related to them?
Oh, that is such a loaded question about practice management software. It is really hard. There is not one software out there that I think checks every box and is perfect, and it's frustrating. And if I had enough time, energy, and money, I would love to envision one and give it to someone to program, because it's very frustrating that that we have Next-Tech that checks a lot of boxes, but then it really doesn't check a lot more. We have Next. There's just there's a lot out there, and I don't feel strong enough about any of them as being the best that I would, you know, want to put my name behind it to recommend it. So I'm sorry, but I will say that the revenue cycle management companies that you work with, a lot of times they have really good insight into the back ends of kind of working with the different platforms. And I have a great resource that I could connect you with. So if you want to email me, I'd be happy to make an introduction from someone that actually works to help choose and implement practice management softwares into your practice, and they might be able to help more on helping you make that decision. And then I would come back in to help you with kind of the marketing and the recall and the automation and branding part of it.
Okay. If there are any more questions, please go ahead and type them into the question pane.
Otherwise, you know, I do encourage you to, you know, I'm happy to send you these slides or the recording of this or any of the other webinars. I'm happy to help answer questions. You know, I want to try and be a resource right now. I know it's a very frustrating, difficult time. I hope, you know, for example, that we'll start getting feedback soon, for example, from the dermatologist in Madrid. You know, I'd love if we could hear from you. You might give us a couple of weeks notice on what's going to happen here. I think we'll start seeing that in a lot of the countries that are starting to reopen. You know, we can learn from them and then better use it to help make our own reopenings more successful.
Well, thank you, Risa, and thank you everyone for attending today's webinar, Marketing Tactical Information You Need to Recover. If you have any other questions, please contact ASDS education staff at education@asds.net, or as Risa has graciously offered, feel free to email her at risa@goldman-marketing.com. Once you leave today's webinar, you'll receive a survey on the presentation, and we would appreciate it if you could complete that and provide your feedback. You will also receive a follow-up email within 24 to 48 hours with a CME certificate for those who attended live. And you'll be informed that the link is up on the ASDS website to view. On behalf of ASDS and our presenters, thank you for joining us today and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.